Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lunch for the Soul. I'm Melissa Wilson, and so happy you're here today. This is a time for us to all gather, have an emotional moment perhaps, but also be inspired for us to realize even on the hardest days and the most unbelievable things you can go through, good things can happen not only along the way, but after that journey. And boy, do we have a journey to share with you. So let's get right to it. Let me introduce you to my special guest today. First of all, we have Levi Nieto, who this is all about. Hello. Happy to have you here along with your beautiful mom, Raquel. Thank you for being here. And then we have to say we have an unbelievably talented person from Texas Children's Hospital who is absolutely magical in all that she does, Marielle Baird. An honor to have you here today. You have a voice of an angel.
Thanks, Melissa.
Yes, and I'm so happy. We're going to be able to see some of you in action in just a little while. We're going to keep you on hold because you, as I told you earlier, you're our grand finale.
Oh, sure thing.
No pressure,
No pressure.
Right? All right, so let's just go back in time. Levi, if it's okay with you, I'm going to let your mom tell me what happened in the first because you don't remember a lot of it. You okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Mom. So let's talk about what happened. You had been at your pediatrician's office and what went down after that?
So Levi had to get his routine vaccinations for 11-year-olds. It was a meningococcal and the Tdap vaccination, and he's had vaccinations before, never any issues. He got the vaccinations, no problem. He's scared of needles, and so I kind of bribed him that if he does a good job with them, he didn't have to go to school that day, and it actually turned into a blessing in disguise. I ended up taking him with me to work that day, and I kept calling him to come back to my office, and he didn't really respond, and I just figured he's busy, you know, he's doing something. He finally comes back to my office, and he just seems really, really off. He's slurring his words a lot. He's trying to explain to me that he has no control over the left side of his hand.
But at first you thought he was just joking around.
I did.
And you were just like, you're not going to school, buddy.
Right.
So why are you doing this?
Right. And I think it was like a kind of like a fear trying to like deal with that, like what's going on. At first I told him like, Levi, you're not going to school. Like, why are you doing this? Chill out. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to school. And he just kept slurring his voice, his words. He kept slurring them. And he was trying to tell me that he was trying to build a Lego. He loves Legos. And he kept telling me, like, Mom, I can't make my arm do what it's going to do. And still, I kept trying to be like a defense mechanism. Like, Levi, stop playing around. And then I knew it was serious when he kind of bent over and he just started drooling. So what is going on? So I grabbed him. He's a heavy kid. I grabbed him and I pulled him over to my couch, and I just kept telling him, like, stop doing this. Like, you're not going to school. And he just, his eyes almost just rolled back. And what felt like forever, but was probably just a few seconds. There was just no response from him at all. And then he broke out in a seizure, which I was thankful for at that moment because I didn't know what was happening with him. He broke out in a seizure, and the nurse from our school came, and you know, I called 911, and the ambulance came and got him, and they took him in, and we were told that, you know, for whatever reason, seizures happen. You know, it was a primary seizure, things happen, and they checked him, you know, they made him do all the cues to make sure that he was doing good, and he was released. And you know, we were just praying that maybe he had a bad reaction to the vaccination and things were going to be okay. And he was. And so I went out of town. It was my dad and I's dream to go to Wrigley Field. And so we had that opportunity for my birthday. And which should have been a joyous moment turned into a nightmare very quickly. We got the call that Levi had had another seizure. And I just knew something was off. So we took him back to the ER. And they wanted us to put him on medication. And I was just hesitant, you know, as a parent, that's not the first thing you want to do. You want to find out the underlying reason why is this going on. Sure. And so I said, no, we're not going to put him on medication. We just took him home, and that Sunday that we got back, he had another seizure. And they just kept getting more intense and lasting longer, and the effects seemed to last longer. And they went ahead, put him on Keppra, which is one of the safest medications for seizures. And you read about side effects, right, of the medications, and you know, those are just kind of there to let you know if this happens, be aware, call 911. It seemed like every single possible bad side effect from the medication was happening to Levi. He was, first started noticing when he started walking off balance, and he would like overstep with his left foot. And I would tell him, like, Levi, stop doing that. And he was not aware. Like, he did not appear to know that he was off balance at all. And then I started noticing he's forgetting things. He couldn't hold things with his left hand. Anything that was small, it would just fall out of his hand. And everybody kept telling me, like, it's okay, it's just a side effect of the medicine. And I'm like, no.
Mother's instinct
not right,
every
This
time
is not
right.
It got really bad Mother's Day. We were celebrating Mother's Day at my house, and I remember my nephews and my family came over, and my nephews were outside playing basketball, and I just remember being so angry because why is my son not out there playing? Like, why is he in here having big emotions? And if you know Levi, he's a very, very mild-mannered kid. He doesn't show a lot of emotions. He doesn't let a lot of things get to him, and he just really started crying and really wanting my dad. And, he's like, Grandpa, read me the Bible. And I could tell he was scared. He was just scared. He wanted to be with me, wanted me to rub his head. Like, he's already a mama's boy, and I love that about him. But he just, Mom, rub my head. Mom, hug me. Mom, do this. Mom, do that. And he asked to go to the bathroom numerous times at our house that day, but would walk to the kitchen. Levi, what are you doing? I need to go to the bathroom. Well, that's not the way of the bathroom, son. And we play a card game with our family called Rummy, and I was just like, well, go play with your grandpa. Like, again, defense mechanism, right? He sat down, and he just completely, like, forgot to play. And I was like, something's not right here.
This is beyond seizures.
Oh, yeah.
You don't lose those thoughts. Almost like dementia was happening.
Right. Like, he just completely was unaware of his surroundings and everything going on. And that night he slept with me, and he was just really restless. Like, he kept jumping up. We had recently got a new dog that showed up on our porch, and he started, he would wake up from a nightmare saying, the dog died. And I'm like, Levi, she's fine. Like, she's right here. She's okay. And he was just really restless, moving up. I was scared that he was going to fall off the bed because he just kept, like, getting up out of the bed. And then I noticed that he started, like, shaking. It wasn't like a huge jerking motion, but just kind of like, just like trembling.
Not like a seizure. So
not like
just
a seizure.
Trembling all over.
And his eyes were kind of like blinking, but he was still responsive. He was still talking to me.
So what did you do?
My dad had been staying with us. His grandpa, my husband works, graveyard shift, and just out of precaution, my dad had been staying with us overnight just in case anything happened, and just, to be there with us and support us. And I called my dad in there, and, he started praying over Levi, and I called my husband, and we were scared that he was maybe having, like, mini seizures over and over because, we're not seizure experts. We just see my son going through something. So we called the ambulance, and they ended up taking him in. At this point, Levi had pretty much lost function of the left side of his body completely.
And you finally got a diagnosis. It took a long time. How long before you?
I would say
from the start to the
from the start. So his first seizure was April 9th. Dr. Sandweiss came in and was pretty straightforward with what the diagnosis was going to be. But they had to do a lot of tests, right? A lot of blood tests, and so they did a lumbar puncture, and they ran some blood tests. And I would say about from the start of it, from April 9th, I would say it took about a month and a half to get a diagnosis.
And then what was the diagnosis?
The diagnosis was anti-NMDA autoimmune receptor encephalitis.
That's a mouthful. What does that mean?
So from layman's terms, from what I can tell you, essentially, for whatever reason, the body started creating antibodies to protect itself from something. And for whatever reason, those antibodies passed his brain barrier, which is not supposed to happen. And the best way I can describe it is his brain, the encephalitis caused so much swelling and inflammation in the brain. And so those receptors or those neurons, and I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but basically are blocked. Like, they can't send out those signals to the body anymore. And so it's basically your brain, I don't want to say it's frozen, but it can't release those signals to the bodies.
When we see the video of him in the hospital and the photos of him in the hospital, it doesn't even seem like the same child. He wasn't even really there, was he?
No.
His eyes would be semi-open, but it just felt like nobody was home.
He was looking right past you.
Yeah.
And
That had to be so difficult, wanting him back.
yeah.
And not knowing if he ever would come back. It seemed hopeful, but it was so rare that they don't have a lot of other cases to look at, do they?
No, and we're being told constantly that every single child who has walked through that hospital with this diagnosis has made improvement, and that gives us hope. That gave us a lot of hope, but at the same time, you wonder if your child's going to be the first one to not make the progress. And he lost his ability to do anything. Blink even. You could call his name, there was no response, no looking at you, and as a mom, when your child doesn't hear your voice or recognize you, it's scary.
Oh, of course.
He lost his ability to walk, talk, eat, track, blink, sleep. I mean, it's almost like the brain wasn't able to process anything to his body.
Levi, do you remember any of that, especially in the beginning, perhaps? What do you remember of all of this?
I think I remember, like, the first seizure, maybe the third one.
Mm-hmm. What did that feel like to you? Were you scared? What were your emotions that went along with that?
I don't really remember.
Yeah. I mean, you were so young to have to go through that. What's the first thing you remember in the hospital once you started pulling out of this? Do you remember music?
Mm-hmm.
Before all of this, you were quite the drummer, weren't you?
Yes.
An unbelievable musician, right? You even had your own band that you played in?
Yes, I did.
What kind of music?
We did one at my school, and then we did a band at my church.
Uh-huh. So all kinds of music that you were really good at. And so this is when music therapy came into play. Right now I'm going to bring in Marielle again. So here you are. You got brought into his room, but he couldn't even move his arms. That would seem overwhelming, but not for you, because that's your job. Tell me about how you came in and started seeing finally him pull out of this.
Sure. So music therapy was introduced into Levi's treatment plan really early on because we knew that he was a musician, but also because Dr. Sandweiss, Catherine, the occupational therapist, Joe, the physical therapist that work on the neurology unit, they're familiar with music therapy, and they know that integrating music in, even when it's still, the patient might be experiencing more disorders of consciousness like symptoms, music is something that you can receive. Humans are comfort creatures. We like knowing what's coming next. We like being able to predict things, and that's because our brain is wired that way. Music happens to be a really nice, predictable, receptive source of stimuli that our brain kind of latches onto. So I get an order, I get to meet Levi, and during that initial meeting, it was probably really scary, but also really hopeful time for Levi's family, because we got to see Levi respond, a little piece of Levi respond to the music. His heart rate decreased, his body calmed, and there was a sense of organization, maybe for the first time.
And is this one of the first times, that picture that we have of you where he's lying in the bed, he's not touching any of the instruments, and you're playing the guitar and singing, is that one of the first times that you met up with him?
Yeah, that was our first few sessions, actually. Just me getting to know Levi, getting to know Raquel and Edgar and the brothers, the whole family, and giving them moments to remember who they were as a family and to initiate that rehabilitative treatment plan.
And when you talk about the physical aspects of that, I mean, we're not talking just a high heart rate, but 180, 200 beats per minute for hours.
Yes.
But then it would come to normal when you started singing. I mean, how incredible is that? Then we have video of you helping him put his hand and helping him strum the guitar. What was that like? And is your hope eventually that his hand starts moving on its own?
Right, yes. So once we see Levi become a little bit more awake, a little bit more alert, we understand his brain is healing. The process is slow, but each step is really important.
Now he's touching the tambourine.
So we're providing hand over hand. There are techniques called pattern sensory enhancement. We're reinforcing a pattern Levi already knows. His brain is really familiar with rhythm, really familiar with a sense of instrument playing. And so reinforcing that familiar pattern for him is helping all of those wires that got crossed when they were really sick. It's sorting them out, and it's helping them remember, oh, this is what it's like to move my hand purposefully. When you shake a shaker, you get a whole bunch of feedback through your sense of hearing, your sense of tactile, gross and fine motor movements. All of that is sending positive messages back into the brain and helping realign.
I have goosebumps because we're just sitting here watching him get stronger and stronger and stronger. But what's neat about you is you're able to take songs that were so meaningful to him, but slow them down a little bit, right, where he could handle a little more, where his brain could process it, but recognize it. How important was that in all of this?
Crucial, absolutely. And I think that's one of the gifts of having music therapy on staff at Texas Children's. You can absolutely play pre-recorded music that's familiar, but the brain is not healthy enough to process it fully. Having a professional musician in a medical setting probably seems a little weird, but being able to slow those things down and make it to where his brain was going to be successful, and not only recognizing this music, but getting to play alongside it, really important. All of a sudden, he's firing globally, aka his brain is working all together to be able to play the drums, process the sounds, know when he needs to switch up the pattern. I will say, having Grandpa, who is a professional drummer and taught Levi everything he knew prior to coming in, an incredible part of our treatment team, honestly.
Oh, I love that. He was part of the team. When you see yourself, Levi, from barely being able to hold a maraca, you could barely even touch the tambourine, and then you are playing those drums. What does that feel like for you?
I think it's really cool that I was able to do that, from barely being able to touch the maraca to playing the drums again.
And I know your brain was very sick then. Do you remember at all trying to strum that guitar or trying to touch it? Or you don't remember that? But when did you start remembering? Maybe when you were starting to play the drums better?
Yes.
That your first memory? That is a cool music studio at Texas Children's Hospital, isn't it? Are you amazed that they have something like that? What did it feel like for you to get stronger and then be able to go from having them come into your room to being able to go in that credible studio?
It was cool.
Yeah, very, very special. I know that there's no way to really be able to say if he would have gotten well that quickly, finally, without music, but it sure seems like it to me. What is your thought as an expert?
Same. I have had the honor of being able to serve a few different families and patients with a similar diagnosis, and music, more often than not, has helped expedite that healing process. You need medicine, family, elements of who you are, and I think music kind of helps unite all of those things. It was really special to be able to work with Levi because he was an incredible drummer prior, but you don't have to have music experience to really benefit from music therapy.
What did it feel like to go and be a part of the thing, from being able to see him not touch the instrument to playing so well?
So joyful. Levi gave a concert, a farewell concert, when he was getting ready to discharge from our inpatient rehab unit. And one of the songs that we chose was I Choose Joy. And I think just getting to really rest in that message of, though I walk through the valleys and there have been moments of shadow, continuing to choose joy. And to look to Raquel, his mom, who was the head of our team. She really did. She guided the doctors, the rehab therapists, all of the nurses, the family. You organized and implemented all of us in the best way possible for your son's rehabilitation. And to see her lead with joy as well. I have goosebumps because I remember it was a rehearsal. We didn't even have the real drum kit getting ready for your concert. And your mom was just praising and jumping for joy in the back of the room. And that's when I knew, that she knows now, we are back where we need to be. We have been able to heal her son. She sees it. She knows.
Oh, it still just literally gives me chill bumps to watch how far you came and to see you at that concert. And what is so special is that song you mentioned, I Choose Joy by King and Country. They found out about it. They sent you a beautiful box of goodies. How incredible was it that you got to open that, Levi? What was that like?
Um,
And a note from them. Was that amazing? How did you feel about it?
Oh, it was awesome. It was awesome to know that songs that, you know, were recorded and put out had such a impact on my son's recovery. And, you know, I listened to the songs and he would play them in the hospital. And it wasn't until I got home, about a month after he was home and still recovering, that I heard one of the songs, Fight on Fighter. And I started listening to the lyrics, and it was like that song was meant for my son and for our journey. And just to have them acknowledge, and it was amazing. The joy it brought to his face when he came in. We knew about it, but we didn't want to say anything to him, that we knew a package was coming for him. And just to know that, you know, these artists create these songs and they may never really understand how it touches families, but it really touched our hearts. And just seeing him and those lyrics, they just hit home, and they're so awesome.
Well, and you know, I wanted you all to play that song for me, and sometimes we have real serious copyright laws. It's hard to be able to pull that off on TV. And King and Country said, "No, please play it. Please let him play our song." I mean, I think that is so powerful that they realize how much this music meant to you, Levi, and I think that's so beautiful. So I asked Marielle the hard question of how she felt he would have done in the hospital without music. You were there day in, day out. You saw the difference. What was the difference once you started music therapy, and how powerful do you feel like it was in his recovery?
Tremendous. OT and PT would come in, and they were amazing. Love them. Sometimes, though, Levi's brain was not able to regulate his body the way we wanted.
And then the heart rate was a big problem.
Yes, it was, you know, it's scary to have your heartbeat that quickly for that amount of time. It's scary. But every time music therapy would come in and she would start singing to him, he was able to complete those therapies. I mean, I believe those therapies were essentially what were bringing him back, waking up his brain. And just as a mom, you see him and you see him calming, and it was an integral part of his recovery. You know, she would come in and bring her instruments, and you know, when I first saw him grip that maraca, and I first saw him just strumming that tambourine, it just, the amount of hope and joy it brought to my heart, tremendous. Like, we are forever grateful for what you do and how you do it, and the smile that you come in with. I mean, it makes a difference. It makes a difference. And then, you know, we're Christians, we're big believers, and you know, Muriel was willing to learn songs that she might not have known, and something that was just familiar to him. So, I mean, it was amazing.
As we wrap up, let's talk about how much your faith and prayer and God played in all of this for you.
God is awesome. Through this entire journey, I never felt alone. I was mad, don't get me wrong. I questioned why my son. There was one point before we entered the hospital where we still didn't understand what was happening, and I got a call from his school, and I specifically heard God's voice say, "He's gonna be fine." And I held on to that daily, just praying over him, having people pray over him. I believe God heard our voice, and he put the right doctors in place, and I truly believe that a miracle is sitting amongst us right now.
This is so beautiful to hear. Levi, God's really important to you as well, right, buddy?
Yes.
Yeah. It's got to be beautiful to see how meaningful this is to this family.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. God works miracles every day, and it's just nice to be able to have that reflected back at us within our kiddos and their families, reinforcing our faith as practitioners. You don't, not every family is that way. And so when you get to see that light, it's incredible.
Levi, how about a little live performance for us? You want to play some drums for us?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so excited. We want to see and hear you, okay? All right, we're going to have you take it away. Wow, let's all give it up for Levi. He's so amazing, so proud of how far he's come. It's amazing to see how music can be so powerful in our lives, and a reminder to us all the difference it can truly make. I hope you feel as blessed as I do by meeting this family today, and I hope you'll join me next time for Lunch for the Soul. Have a blessed day.